TikTok. Number one Marmaduke fan here, and this is my first TikTok live. A confession time. I hate trying to live stream and draw. I can never see everybody's comments because I'm so hyper focused on drawing. But I want to do something for a live stream. So how about a storybook time? Let's read my comic. And also, I'm a boomer, so I don't know what half of these things mean. Spotlight mic check. How do I mic check? What does that mean? Road to Superstars. Man, I'm such a boomer. I don't know what half of this stuff is. And D Extreme has joined. Hi, D Extreme. We're going to read my comic. I also would like to do more storybook videos. So if you know indie comics, people who are writing and drawing an indie comic, let me know in the comment section and I'll try to check them out. So, silent opening page. Once upon a time, in a place called Nebraska, there was a girl named Jane Smith. All her life, Jane dreamed of flying. But Jane could not fly, of course. Kick. Oh. Beep, beep, beep. 5 o'clock in the morning. Jane was small. Jane was weak. Jane was timid. Poke. Muss, muss, muss. For no good reason, Jane blamed this on her big brother. Now, I'm sure you know this is a terribly silly thing to do. Though if you had a brother as big and strong as John, you might just have felt as small and weak as Jane. In her head, Jane knew John had done nothing wrong, and they said to one another, "Behold, this dreamer cometh." But in her heart, a small, bitter voice would say, "God, I hate him." American Sign Language. Why are you mad? Jane. I'm not mad. Josie. Your face is mad. Mom. Well, I'm sad my girls aren't listening. Ahem, says Dad. Jane, you look like something's on your mind. Anything you want to ask? Josie says, hey, it's my fault, not Jane's. Jane thinks, yes! No, I mean, I want to visit the Washingtons. Try sparring. John says, I can give you a ride if you want. No, I'll just walk. Who's here? What is Go Live Together? Oh, a lot of people are here. Damien, Marquise, OBS, LCast. Hi, everybody. What is Live Together? I don't know what that is. Why does it say mic check? Am I silent? Am I just speaking into the void here? Turn up the volume as your favorite musician hits the stage. TikTok is so weird. I'm not used to it. Yeah, all right, I'm going to keep reading. Jane and Josie are walking through the dirt road. Josie says, I'm reading Curious George. And Jane says, neat. Beep. She beeps the doorbell at Martha's house. Martha says, hey, Jane. Ah, sweet. Josie? Josie says, hi, Martha. I'm supposed to stay out of your hair today. Martha says, you really got to get your own suit. Jane says, I'm just waiting for the right time to ask. I thought you were going to buy your own. I am, but it's their roof, their rules. When am I going to get you to join a game, Josie? Says Martha. Josie says, I don't know. Mom says it zaps kids into La La Land. Jane says, not really. It's just make-believe. Martha says, it's like the Danger Room. Josie says, it's like the Imagination Station. Martha says, what's the Imagination Station? What's the Danger Room? We don't watch TV. Martha says, gonna watch us fight? No, thank you. I'm turning my listening ears off now. Her listening ears? Oh, that's Josie's name for her cochlear implants. Ever since she was a baby, Mom always likes to say, turn on your listening ears, and Josie took it literally. Muss. Dollar's not here, is he? You said he wasn't gaming today? Football practice, why you asking? I don't want to be seen in this getup. Jane, you are covered head to toe. Which reminds me, you really should pick out a costume. How about it? Oh, well, happy birthday, Martha. She gives her the helmet. Jane puts it on. Boom. And Jane is taken into a virtual game. Power Princess Dress Up 3. And the world shifts into color in the virtual world. Zap, one of the girls transforms Martha into a dog. Zap, one of the girls transforms a girl into a duck. Jane sees the chaos and starts running away, but another girl spots her. Zap, and Jane is transformed into an elephant. The girl points at her and laughs. Ha 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 ha. And we transition back to the real world. Skip it, says Jane. You sure? Yeah, let's spar. Slam. She closes the door. When I step inside this world, my world, it's like nothing I can describe. I feel alive. I feel lightning crackling through my fingertips. and she passes through the door into the world of virtual reality. Okay, I want you to focus on timing your charges and blocks this time, says Martha. Can't we just skip the tutorial? Hey, I didn't write the law. You need your own account. Cordelia, give us a dummy for practice. Boop. Okay, Martha. Come on, you can't be serious. Out of the sky appears a strange object. Boing! A dummy lands on the ground. Here's your dummy. Try to beat it. Oh boy, do you think we can beat the dummy if we try, Jane? Okay, Dorcas. Psst, Jane, just focus. You got this. Go! Boom! Wait up! Martha, you butt! I wasn't ready. Cry me a river! Step 1. To charge energy, clench your fist twice in a row. You can use this power to ka-swoom! Oh, wow. You already know how to power leap. Sure hope you know how to shield. I know! Okay, I'll show you how. I know! Press your ring finger and pinky into your palm, and Martha collapses her shield, lands on the ground, and activates a new shield. She charges the energy into her boot and thrusts forward with a power leap. Jane lands awkwardly with her shield suddenly turning red. Great, she's almost half a leap ahead of me. Gotta make up for it now. What? Crunch! Aw, poor dummy lost a life. 3 strikes and you're out. But I'm sure you knew that. No! Jane is spiraling through the air completely out of control and activates a shield to gain her balance. She spirals it to look around, and Cordelia the AI says, I'm sure you also know your shield can pause rotational motion. This gives you a chance to catch your breath, but your velocity won't change, so watch your landing. No shield. And Jane remembers a previous experience. Hold on tight, Jane. I don't know, Dollar. Whoa, kid, spare a rib. Forget something, says someone. Thwump. Dollar, you'd best not kill my sister, or I'll have to kill you. Dollar says, your mom will kill us first. Jane says, wait, what happens if I fall off? John says, you get hurt. No, what do I do? First, you relax, and then you get hurt. Scrunch! Jane lands on her shoulder and rolls. Meanwhile, in the distance, the sun shines on a mountain, and the ground begins to rumble. Martha's running. She doesn't want to leap straight into the golems. The rocks awaken and them. As Jane is sliding to a stop, 3 golems arise from the ground, frightening off a deer. Just once, thinks Jane. I want to win something. Just once. And she remembers John saying, you think too much, Jane. You think so much about fighting. You forget you are fighting. Holding back tears, Jane charges a blast and plants it on the ground, yelling, yo, golem, here I... And she sends herself flying into the air out of control. One of the golems spots her and roars. Raising a fist, Jane puts up her hand to create a shield, and boom! Cordelia says, wow, you got your first perfect shield. It redirected the attack. Wait, a perfect shield? I mean, Martha, did you? Slam! Another golem brings its arm down on Martha with force. Martha, are you okay? Jane runs right into the path of the dummy, which smacks her right in the face. Get off me! A shadow appears above them. The second golem is bringing its fist down on top of Jane and the dummy. The dummy raises his hand and creates a shield, and Jane bonks on the inside of the shield. Thwam! The golem lifts its fist, leaving a crack in the dummy's shield. No, 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 no! Uh-oh, dummy was too slow. Late shields take permanent damage. I know, Yo, Jane! Just stay focused, says Martha, appearing from behind the golem's arm. And Jane remembers another scene with John. Focus, Jane. Loading part 2. Hold still! No, you can't land a hit just chasing after me. Martha plants her hand on the golem's arm and spins around in midair. Cordelia says, a shield can remain active for 10 seconds before it fades. Martha charges an attack and slices through the golem's head. Breathe, says John, and wait for your opening. Jane thinks, breathe. The second golem raises his fist, about to smash down, and just before it lands, Jane finds her opening and bursts out of the shield, just in time as the golem's fist slams down, crushing the dummy and killing it a second time. Slam! Martha charges a second attack and kicks off the golem's shoulder into the air. The red golem strikes Jane with its fist, kind of like lifting her off the ground. Cordelia says, to scale this mountain, you will need the I love you hand symbol. I love this ability. Jane is getting smacked around by the golem. Martha is flying into the air, approaching the top of the mountain. Jane charges an attack with a hand gesture, and Martha hears an echoing boom, boom, boom. And Jane is sent flying into the air chaotically. Cordelia says, using this, you can create an attraction force. I just call it pull. It even works in midair. Martha sees Jane and thinks, she used the golem's throw to gain height? Did she plan this? Jane spirals in the air above the cliff and activates the pull ability using the I love you hand symbol. Snap! It brings her down with too much force, and she cracks into the rock, losing one of her lives. Cordelia says, whoops, you didn't get your shield up in time. One life down. Gotta watch the kickback when you use the pull ability. Jane dimly opens her eyes. Emerging from a world of darkness, she sees she's on top of a cliff. Oops! Yikes! Jane kicks back from the edge of the cliff and accidentally knocks off her own boot. Cordelia says, I almost forgot. If you lose a life, you lose a shield to boot. Now just imagine trying to fight with no shields. The shoe taps down and falls off the cliff, tack, and lands off the red golem's head. The red golem turns around as the shoe lands on top of the poor dummy who's lost 2 lives. The dummy gets up, gets angry, and blasts right into the red golem's back. Crack. But after losing 2 lives, your offensive power will double. Sure comes in handy against a superior foe. As the dummy is smacking around the red golem, Jane is getting annoyed at Cordelia. Grasp! Martha makes it to the top of the cliff. Shh. The wind blows and Martha takes a strong stance. Jane says, crap, hold up! Martha's waiting, but not for me. And we see a arrowhead, menacing. It's just sitting there, menacingly. And Jane sees 3 raven archers in cloaks holding bows and arrows. Cordelia says, your final obstacle, the blind archers. And we pull away to see the cliff, and Jane's terrified expression and Martha's confident expression. Watch out, says Cordelia. A shield's power will start to diminish after 1 second. And Jane thinks, this is where I always die. And she remembers getting shot with arrows in previous games. Cordelia says, to pass these archers, you will need the cyclone ability. Jane thinks Martha is being cautious, inching as close as she can. Cordelia, a cyclone is weaker than a shield, but it lasts longer. Jane, I lost 1 shield, so Martha has more options. Cordelia, you need at least 1 good shield to use cyclone. Jane, should I use a cyclone first to buy time? If I could just get a perfect shield. Cordelia, careful. A cyclone throws your shield towards a target. Jane, what if I just attack Martha with a cyclone? Cordelia, activate a quick cyclone by just snapping your fingers. Jane, no, that'll leave me open. What do I do? Cordelia, but for more control, charge up power before snapping. Jane, are you all right? And she remembers John talking to her. No, I'm overthinking. Jane grasps her shoulder. This game is all about focus. Grip. Gripping the ripped sleeve from her gi, she rips it. Rip! Martha! Catch! Jane throws the ripped sleeve through the air, but it plops lamely on the ground in between them. Plop. The sound echoes. Plop! And the blind archer hears it. Thump, thump! 2 arrows strike the ripped sleeve instantly. Oh, says Jane. Squish! Her foot lands on the ground, scraping against the dirt. Yow! An arrow slices through the air and nearly gets her between the eyes. Ah, arrow! She throws the arrow away. Cordelia says, wow, you paused your first arrow. Careful. Paused objects remain trapped in your shield. Trip. Jane trips over the arrow trapped in her shield. Ah, the same arrow. Ah, more arrows. More arrows strike the outside of the shield. Martha creates a shield and leaps into the air. Jane thinks, huh? Martha used a power leap before activating her shield? Ah, I should have done that. No, this game is all about focus. Shield down. She deactivates her shield as an arrow is ripping through the air. She snaps her fingers just as the arrow cuts through the arrow she's holding, and whoosh, she creates a cyclone, throwing away the second arrow. Yow! Just as she's celebrating, another arrow lands on the ground by her foot. The second archer, Jane thinks, as it fires arrow at her. She rushes forward and puts a cyclone between her and the archer. She thinks, he's free to attack either me or Martha. Gotta stay close to the cyclone. She uses the cyclone as cover to protect her from the arrows. Martha hasn't lost a shield. Martha deactivates her shield and snaps her fingers to create a cyclone. So she has no delay. Suddenly they both look behind as the dummy appears in midair behind them. Dummy's still far behind, so focus on the archers. Boom! It lands with a crash, and Jane charges a pull attack. Just as her cyclone dissipates, an arrow comes flying through. Time's up, says Cordelia. The arrow grazes by her shoulder as she activates her pull technique, and draw! She yanks the bow out of the archer's arrow and lands her foot straight in its beak. Bam! Bach! Martha puts up another perfect shield. Wow, perfect shield. The perfect shield redirects the arrow backwards at the archer. Thunk, and it lands inside its skull. Gah, says the archer. The second archer. So Jane's got her foot on that one. Martha's jumping on that one, and the second one is in between them and it can attack anybody. Jane readies her fingers to create a cyclone. Slip, and she doesn't snap her fingers right. I'm dead, thinks Jane. Martha lands on the ground, crunching the neck of the archer she's attacking. Twang! The second archer fires its bow at Martha, who just barely gets her hand up and uses a snap attack to blow it away. Perfect cyclone, Martha. Whump! The cyclone crashes into the archer, sending it directly at Jane, who leaps away into the air, losing her second shoe. Plop. Crunch! She lands on her head and rolls. Martha says, gotta practice with both hands, Jane. Jane says, well, I did. Snap! Charge cyclone! Nuts, says Martha as she's caught in the cyclone's grasp. Jane thinks this is the last stretch, and as Martha's completely trapped in a tornado. It lifts her into the air, pop, and she lands on her back with a scrunch. Martha says, Jane, you ass! Cry me a river, says Jane. She charges an attack and directs at her foot to create a power leap, aiming at the green ring of fire. Boom! She flies into the air. Ba-doom. Ba-doom. She sees the green ring, and it reflects in her eyes. Ba-doom. Ba-boom. Ba-boom. The dummy starts to catch up. Martha tries to get back on her feet, and Jane looks behind her as she's flying through midair. Ba-boom, 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 ba. Martha grabs the dummy by its arm and twists with a roll. Then, kaboom! She sends energy into the dummy, firing it at Jane in midair. Bump! It smacks into her, and ting! She barely falls short of the green ring of fire, her hand gently bouncing off it. Da-doom! Martha charges an attack, lifting her into the air and through the ring. Goal! Martha wins. Jane barely manages to get up a shield as she lands with the dummy butt in the air on top of her. Crack! Martha uses the pull force to bring herself down straight onto Jane's throat with her boot. No fair, says Jane. Dummy defeated. Jane lost 2 lives. Martha says, fair. Come on, Jane. There are no rules in leap year. They transition into a new space. Welcome to Leap Year, says Cordelia, showing off a menu. Online matchmaking, story mode, training mode, local multiplayer, custom settings. Choose your game mode here, or walk through a door. Martha says, finally, come on, I want to kick your ass some more, as she approaches a tall, narrow doorway in a bright light. Jane sniffs, hiding tears and rubbing them away from her face, and Martha notices. Martha says, Jane, are you good? Dirt in my eye. Martha puts her hand on Jane's shoulder. Ever wonder why the tutorial is so freaking hard? To torture me, says Jane. Pretty close. It's a wake-up call, Jane. You know how most games like to hold your hand, right? Jane says, well, I don't know much about other games. But it's all basic design, right? Whether it's a game or anything, really. You want it to be intuitive. They stand in the light of the doorway. Martha says, right. But Leap Year adjusts the difficulty based on how you play. See, they know you don't think like a typical gamer nerd. Ta-da! Cordelia appears suddenly in costume. Ring-a-ling-ring! Captain Aaron Creed calling Martha. Oh, Jesus, please kill me now, says Martha. Yikes, thinks Jane. Martha took the Lord's name in vain. Should I say something? And she has a sticker on her head that says homeschool kid. Martha whispers, Aaron, I'm working with that incoming freshman I told you about. Jane stands lost in thought. Aaron says, is she part of the team? No, but, says Martha, then she is not your priority, correct, co-captain? And in his eyes are reflected a centipede-like creature. Martha says, yes, Captain Creed, while Jane is still thinking, maybe she meant it in a good way. Martha grumbles herself. Wake up, Jane. Whack. I got a head. What, now? Seriously? Captain says jump, you say how high, sir. That's life in the Leap Year Club. Bye-ya! And Martha gives a command, and shadoom, and a giant bear appears underneath her. Sides, you really should get your own partner to match up against my Barry. Barry is a giant gorilla with the face of a bear that fills the room. Martha says, Cordelia, make a practice dummy for Jane, one she can spar with. Cordelia says, okay, Martha. Done. Jane's dummy is in the training room. Oh, hooray, I get to fight a dummy. Thanks, Cordelia. Don't knock it till you try it, says Martha. I'm no martial artist, but the AI can imitate any fighter in history. So I've heard, said Jane. Do you think the AI in Leap Year are actually creative, or is that just hype? Martha says, beats me. I'm no programmer either. I just play the game, Jane. But they sure act like they're real, and she gives Barry a little kiss on the nose. Cordelia appears again. Ring, ring. Guess who is calling, Martha? Whump. Martha says, Jane, set your dummy to level 4 or 5. Ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump. Barry's so big, he trembles the ground. Get a partner, train with it this summer, and you're a shoo-in for the school team. Jane thinks, wait, you mean that? What'd you tell him? Martha says, duh, I told him you're a fighter. You're John Smith's sister, after all. And Jane takes that in for a second. Let's go to part 3. And it's loading. Ring-a-ding-doo, says Cordelia. It's you-know-who, says Martha, leaving Jane alone. Jane enters a new room. Steppa, steppa, steppa. Steppa, steppa, steppa. She walks through the doorway and slam! The door crashes behind her. Cordelia appears and says, welcome to the training room, Jane. Want me to customize your dummy? And we see a far-off view of the floor of the training room with the dummy standing in the middle and Jane approaching. Yeah, can you make it look and fight like a real person, Cordelia? Cordelia says, Leartech owns the rights to all of your favorite martial artists and athletes, past and present. Does that include Olympic athletes, says Jane. The Olympic Games have been folded into the Leap Year Games. This February, Jane interrupts Cordelia. The athletes, Cordelia. Yes, John Smith. Cordelia says, oh dear, there are quite a few John Smiths. Could you be a bit more specific? Jane gets frustrated and yells, it was 3 years ago. He medaled in kumite, judo, and taekwondo. Boop, blip. Cordelia says, is this the right John Smith? Press to confirm. Jane thinks, yeah, that's the one I'm after. It's just strange seeing him here in this world. She raises her finger to touch the screen and hovers it there for a second. And we transition to a memory in black and white. She remembers looking at John, and she thinks, has it really been a year since we last fought? I haven't forgotten how I felt that day. You forgot something, Jane, says John as he holds up a taekwondo helmet. Your skull isn't all that thick. Thump, and he flaps it on her head. Goof, she says. Hey, says Jane, promise me you won't hold back. John says, Jane, it's light contact sparring. We're supposed to hold back. Jane says, come on, John, just please hear me out. Don't go easy on me just because I'm your sister or because I'm a girl. John says, you kidding? I respect your roundhouse kick far too much. Jane stands up. It's not something to joke about. When I win, if I can win, I only want to win if I've really earned it. I want to see you at your best, she says, and she looks at him fiercely. He pauses and looks at her for a second and pats her on the head. Jane thinks, I don't know any word to describe what I felt then. John says, you have my word, Jane. I understand that feeling more than you know. Jane thinks, neither fear nor hope, yet it was greater than both. I think you're the one who's forgotten something, doofus, says Jane. Oh, what precisely, says John. Tech, and she touches him on the head to show that he forgot to take off his glasses before he put on his helmet. We see John has taken off his glasses and feels a little embarrassed about herself, and we see Jane looking happy. And she thinks, that was the last day I could look at him without hate. Back to the present, Jane touches the screen, activating it. Blip, it shines with bright light filling the room, and she turns away, the light too intense to see. When she turns back, an AI in the form of her brother John is standing before her. She approaches the dummy and kind of puts her hand on her head to measure it. You're shorter? I see. Cordelia must have used data that was 3 years old, so it's as if we're the same age. Uncanny. Jane turns back. Hey, Cordelia, why'd you add his glasses? Do you expect him to fight looking like that? Cordelia says, oh dear, did I make a mistake? They were in his profile pic, but I can easily remove whammo. Jane takes a punch right at the AI John's face, sending the glasses flying. Nah, I think I'm good, says Jane, and the glasses lay shattered on the ground. Cordelia, I don't have a fighting partner. Can I still fight with leap year tournament rules? Oh, and John's never played this game, so that means this AI doesn't know any game-specific techniques, right? Cordelia says yes to both questions. I've set the game mode to deathmatch, and the AI is only trained in martial arts, but has no experience with leap year's special abilities. Warning, this AI is at level 6, and she holds up a stop sign. I would recommend a level 3 foe for you, Jane. Jane says, this is the person I want to fight, so can we get started or what? Cordelia says, okay, don't say I didn't warn you. Just tap the back of your wrist twice when it's time to start. Shut up, Cordelia, says Jane, and Cordelia looks offended for a second. Okay, if you don't want my help, then I won't interrupt. Poof, Cordelia appears right behind Jane's ear. Heh, good luck, Jane Smith. Poof, and Cordelia disappears, leaving Jane looking flustered. Whew. Jane takes a breath, and she she tries to pull the hair out of her eyes, and Jane thinks, I am great, I am strong, I am fearless, and she taps the back of her wrist. Jane thinks, I've noticed this game requires you to perform 2 actions in a row before initiating an effect. In a moment frozen in time, Jane lifts her fingers lightly off of the back of her wrist, and the AI seems to wake up, standing up alert. It keeps you from starting a match or attacking by mistake, and you start feeling pins and needles beneath your skin. She taps her wrist a second time, and the AI activates. That one moment between 2 moments is your last chance. If you choose to cross that point, there's no turning back. And the match begins. The AI rushes forward, raising its left fist to punch her. And Jane thinks, I need to move. Why can't I move? And she collapses onto the ground, unable to react. Kaboom! Perfect shield. Jane looks at her hand for a second and sees the AI reacting, having been thrown back by the force of her shield. She tries to gain her footing. I tripped? Of course, I was frozen like a dough. But my shield timing was actually perfect because of that one moment of hesitation. It's all so real. I actually forgot where I was. She charges offensive energy and prepares a cyclone attack. Snap! For as long as I'm here, I have weapons, tools, and she throws a cyclone straight at the AI. I forgot that there are no rules in leap year. I used to tell myself, give it time. I'll catch up to him. But in that arena, I finally let myself hope for more. And so as she's fighting John in the present, she remembers the Taekwondo match with John a year ago. See Juck, says the coach. I knew I couldn't match his size and strength. In the present, huh? He's falling? Did I get him? I hoped I could compensate with speed and control. In the Taekwondo match, she remembers John striking her, but I was outclassed by him on every front. No, he rolled with it and let his injured arm take the blow. She remembers landing a kick to the head was my best chance. Wham, 2 points to blue. But I was afraid of his height. I was afraid of him. In the present, Jane thinks, can't let him recover. I thought playing it safe was my only option. Still afraid, I took a step back, trying to retreat. So in the Taekwondo match, Jane plants her foot and twists around. In the present, Jane thinks, I've seen Martha channel her energy into different attacks, which means Jane remembers the Taekwondo match. Without thinking, I twisted my body away from him. Somehow, that faltering step pivoted into an attack. But even in that moment, the fear never left me. Palm heel strike, says Jane, and she channels her energy into the force of the blow. I was still afraid, but I was not afraid of being afraid. And she remembers landing a perfect hook kick on John's head. My spinning hook kick landed cleanly. In the present, Jane blasts John with the energy of a palm heel strike, and she remembers, I didn't even feel John's palm heel strike in response. John stumbles, clasping his head, and lands a palm heel strike on Jane's chest. In the present, thwam, the energy attack blasts into the AI, and the AI begins to step forward. And Jane thinks, he's pushing through it? That attack would have sent me flying. In the Taekwondo match a year ago, point for blue. Maybe the referee just didn't see my kick land, or maybe he did see it, but thought it lacked strength. And in the Taekwondo match, Jane loses her temper and wham, kicks John with all her force. In the present, Jane thinks, think, Jane, think. Indirect attacks are out. No problem. I still have 2 shields, so let's use one to create a cyclone. She prepares and snap. The cyclone rips forward, but goes off trajectory and misses John. No, I had no time to charge. John's closing the distance. Jane remembers the Taekwondo match, and Jane thinks about the present moment. To my left, she thinks. She charges her offensive energy. Don't panic. First, I'll attack him from behind with a knife hand strike, and then she what do you call it? She fires off a knife hand strike, and she remembers the Taekwondo match, flying through the air, and then she thinks, if he tries to dive forward and dodge the knife hand, I'll follow up with a fully charged punch. And she remembers, for one eternal moment, I believed that I could win. For just one moment, I was flying. Slice, crunch. She fires off a knife hand strike with offensive energy, cutting into the ground. And John notices and steps back. And then she follows up with, boom, a full force punch. Jane pauses and looks pleased with herself. And then she thinks, where'd he go? And sees there's nothing there. No, it was a feint. Where is he? She turns around looking to find where John disappeared to. And then her hair gets into her face, and she charges off an attack and swings out wildly, only to trip, be knocked over by John. She activates a shield and thinks, he's inside my shield's range, as John twists her arm. And then as he twists her arm, he slams his left hand into the back of her elbow, twisting her forward with a joint manipulation, wham, into the ground. Jane thinks back on the Taekwondo match. I hit him with everything I had. I held nothing back. But against him, everything I had was nothing. And she remembers kicking at John only for him to smack her out of the air and straight onto the ground. In the present, Jane thinks, wait, that arm should be crippled. How is the AI able to move? And the AI slams its elbow into the back of Jane's neck, taking one of her lives instantly. She pauses for a minute, feeling the effects of the blow. And she remembers the Taekwondo match. 10, 9, 8. Jane, are you all right? Something's wrong. Stop counting. Give her space. Try to slow your breathing. And Jane barely manages to whisper, I quit. Part 4. In the present, Jane kind of like feels her head bowing. She feels defeated, and then suddenly, no. Her eyes pop open, and she charges an attack. I will not stay a quitter. So what if I lost a life? I still have 2 lives left. She plants her hand on the ground and charges an offensive attack and thinks, plus 5 seconds of invincibility. Boom! She creates an explosive force, thrusting her into the air and pushing John back with the force of the blow. And she flies through the air, spinning around, and thinks, and now, for my next trick, I'll use pull force to yank him off balance. First, I'll aim for his injured arm. And gotcha! Using the pull force, she aims it at his wrist, yanking it. And then she thinks, now to just stick the landing and activate, twang! And she, the force of the pull kind of like stops her in midair. And she thinks, oh yeah, he's heavier than me. Which means the pull force is just going to bring me straight to him. She starts to fall through the air, and she thinks, it's like trying to fight against solid stone. And she looks to the side and sees one of the statues from earlier. That's it, the statue. I need an anchor. This is going to hurt. She activates the second pull force and aims for the statue. Left arm first, pull. Just as she smacks into the ground, she activates the pull force, swoosh, pulling her straight towards the statue. Her left arm is taut. The pull force from her right arm is loose. Suddenly, the AI realizes what's about to happen and notices the pull force yanking on its arm. It twists around and puts all its weight to pull away from Jane. Jane thinks, wait till the line goes taut. Crack! The pull force cracks the AI's wrist, and Jane thinks, and the pull force will travel through me to him. She's pulled tight on 2 sides by the forces, and the statue begins to snap under the pressure. Slide, snap. The AI's heavy weight is pulling against the pull force, and it's starting to move slightly. And Jane thinks, activate right arm now. And she pulls with her right arm. The force of it pulls on John and twists him around, and we see a close-up of its face as it prepares to do something. Jane activates the force and thinks, okay, big guy, try and dodge, crack. And then just as she does it, bam! John leaps forward and kicks her at the back of the head, using the force of the pull attack to only make its attack stronger. Jane falls over and dies a second time. She's lost 2 lives. The AI of John flies through the air, bam, and crashes into the statue, sending pieces of it flying everywhere. Jane, looking a little dazed and confused and punch drunk, kind of looks up and thinks, gotcha, I did it. I finally, boop, Cordelia appears. Wow, Martha, your AI learned the shield technique. And Jane sees that the AI has used the shield technique to protect it from the force of the blow. She's surrounded by the little broken pieces of the statue. She hasn't even taken 1 life from the AI yet. Boops, says Cordelia. Wow, Martha, your AI learned the pull technique. And the AI activates a pull technique and grabs Jane by the elbow. Yank. Jane tries to launch a cyclone snap, but nothing happens. The AI activates the pull force and starts lifting her into the air. I have no cyclone, thinks Jane, which means I have no shields, which means I have no lives. She's screwed. It's time for her to take the L. Meanwhile, Josie is reading Curious George. The end, thinks Josie, and she shuts the book closed with a grin on her face. Josie looks around, a little confused, and she sees the virtual reality machines. Josie stands up and approaches them. How long has Jane been in there? Huh? Is this thing on mute? And Josie slaps herself on the head. Huh, need my listening ears. Duh, Josie. On the screen, Jane is flying through the air towards John, who's about to punch her in the face, and the screen shows that she's lost 2 lives. Josie turns and looks just in time to see something strange happening, and she thinks, there's Jane, and wait, is that John? Crunch! Jane smacks right against John, who delivers a tiger knee to her left arm, cracking it. Huh? Thinks Josie. Bam! Jane slams into the wall, her left arm completely pulverized. In a panic, Josie looks down and sees the emergency stop button, and thunk, slams it with force. Meanwhile, Jane is falling into the air and kind of falling into darkness. And as she's falling, she remembers being a kid and playing the dress-up game with the other girls. I got Jane, says the blonde girl. And Jane, horrified that she's been turned into an elephant, says, what are these? What have you done to me? Oh, come on, Jane, says the blonde girl. It's not that big a change, really, she says, as she gestures to her left ear. Stop laughing, says Jane, as the other kids laugh. Change me back right now. Ow! And she pulls on the ears. They hurt? Get them off! Jane is pulling on her ponytails in the real world and getting confused. In the virtual world, she's yanking on the ears and she's hurt and she doesn't know what's going on. She says, I can't, and she slips. Martha's shocked as she sees what's about to happen, and crack. Jane lands face first on the ground, cracking the virtual reality helmet, and Jane looks up and sees 2 worlds, the virtual world and her real world, in a mixed-up reality. Jane? Jane, someone says as Jane opens her eyes in a dark room. Jane, are you okay? Says Josie. As she opens the virtual reality machine. Stupid door. Did I win? Says Jane, punch drunk. Slide. Jane steps out. Josie, did you hit the emergency shutdown? Don't you know that? Josie says, where is John and why was he hitting you? Oh, says Jane. All right, that is pages 1 to 121. I'm working on pages 122 and 123 this week, and they should be posted this weekend. So that was fun. If you guys have a comic you would like to hear me read, let me know in a comment, and I will check it out. If you do a comic yourself, let me know, because I'm interested in following artists on TikTok and Twitter. My YouTube channel is #1 Marmaduke fan. My Instagram is at Jane and Akira, and my TikTok is at Jane and Akira. My Twitter is at Josh, I think it's Josh hyphen cartoon guy. Don't hold me to that. I do post the comic on Twitter as well. Ooh, so what do we got? I'm getting notices about other people using TikTok Universe. I don't know what that is. It says Kaya Campos has joined. Thanks for joining. Neato. Okay, that's my first little TikTok live. So this was just kind of like a trial run to see if I could figure out how to do it. I will have more art time lapses up soon. I try to make an art time lapse for every page of my comic as I make it. So my YouTube channel is currently demonetized, but I'm working on that. So if you check me out on YouTube, I'll have art time lapses, and I have indie comic reviews and an occasional Let's Play as I have time. So thanks, everybody. Thanks to everybody on TikTok who's been following me and liking my progress. And see you around. Bye-bye. Wait, how do I end this? I don't know how to end this. There it is. Is it the power button? End live. There we go. Now I'm a boomer. There it is. Catch